Legend has it that deep within the isolated forest of Black Hollow, there stands an old ranger watchtower, creaking and decayed. Built decades ago for fire surveillance, it now serves a much darker purpose. Every ranger who worked the area had heard the stories. Never climb the tower, they warned. Once you did, there was no coming back. Not truly, yet curiosity has always been the downfall of many. The first to climb it, a rookie ranger named Lewis, returned a shattered man. His eyes were glassy and distant as he mumbled incoherently about a nightmare he couldn't escape. In his vision, he found himself transported to the center of a small, dusty western town. The air was thick with the scent of rot and decay. Cowboys lounged against buildings, spitting tobacco and watching with dead, indifferent eyes. Before him, a man stood trembling, his hands tied behind his back, the terror evident on his dirt-streaked face. A gunman stepped forward, raised a revolver, and shot the man point-blank in the skull. Blood and brain matter exploded like a crimson flower, spraying the surrounding crowd, but none of them flinched. Instead, they dragged his twitching body to a pig pen. The pigs, half-starved, swarmed the corpse, gnashing their teeth as they tore flesh from bone. The man's final screams curdled the air, his legs still kicking as the pigs devoured him alive, ripping apart muscle, sinew, and organs. The squeals of the pigs mingled with his dying cries, creating a symphony of horror that rang through Lewis's mind long after the vision ended. When Lewis stumbled down from the tower, babbling about pigs and blood, his fellow rangers found him curled in a fetal position, shaking uncontrollably. He was sent home, but the nightmares never stopped. A week later, he was found hanging from the rafters of his cabin, his face frozen in terror, as if even in death he was still running from what he'd seen. But Lewis wasn't the last. One by one, rangers, both new and seasoned, succumbed to the lure of the tower, and each came down changed. The next climber was Carla, a seasoned ranger with years in the field, confident that the stories were nothing but superstition. But the moment she reached the top, the world around her shifted. The peaceful forest below transformed into a dense, choking jungle. Carla heard the panicked footsteps before she saw them. A woman sprinting through the trees, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her face twisted in terror. Behind her, a hulking figure wielding a rusted machete crashed through the underbrush, his wild eyes gleaming with malicious glee. Carla wanted to look away, but she was frozen in place, forced to watch as the machete-wielding man caught up to the woman. He swung the blade with savage force, the steel slicing into flesh and bone with a sickening thud. Blood sprayed across the foliage, soaking the earth as the woman let out an ear-splitting scream. The machete came down again and again, severing limbs, splintering bones. The attacker was relentless, hacking her apart piece by piece, as if driven by some unspeakable rage. Her cries slowly faded, leaving only the rhythmic thwack of the blade hitting her remains. When Carla came down from the tower, her hands were covered in scratches, as if she had tried to claw away at something unseen. She never spoke of what she saw, but a week later, her body was found deep in the forest, wrists slashed, her blood soaking the earth beneath the very tower she had climbed. The visions grew darker with each new climber. Another ranger, Rick, made the climb despite the warnings, mocking the old superstitions as campfire stories. He lasted longer than most but returned pale, shaking, muttering about the shadows. When questioned, he described the vision in grisly detail. The tower had taken him to the base of a cliffside where a group of hikers were walking along a narrow trail. At first, everything seemed normal, until the shadows beneath the trees started to move. At first, they were subtle, shifting and slithering like dark serpents. Then, without warning, the shadows leapt from the ground, taking form and wrapping themselves around the hikers. One by one, the shadows tightened, squeezing the life out of their victims. Eyes bulged, mouths opened in silent screams as their throats were crushed. Bones snapped audibly, blood vessels burst, and the hikers' bodies convulsed in their final moments of agony. The shadows dragged the corpses into the darkness, leaving only a trail of blood behind. Rick tried to burn down the tower the very next day. His attempts were in vain. The flames climbed high, consuming the wooden structure. Yet the following morning, it stood there, untouched as if nothing had happened. A week later, Rick vanished, leaving nothing behind but a hastily written note that simply read, "It watches, always watching." More rangers tried to destroy the tower. Axes, sledgehammers, even explosives. Nothing worked. Each time, the structure reappeared, whole and unscathed, as though mocking their efforts. Eventually, the park rangers stopped trying. They left the tower alone, passing on the warnings to any new recruits. Don't climb it. Whatever you do, don't climb the tower. But curiosity has a way of getting the better of people. Even now, there are whispers of rangers disappearing, of hikers vanishing into the woods near the tower. There are no investigations, no inquiries. The forest keeps its secrets well, and the tower stands, ever watching, waiting for the next victim brave or foolish enough to climb its steps. The stories continue to pass from ranger to ranger, each one more terrifying than the last. And as long as the tower stands, so too will the nightmares it unleashes on those who dare ascend it. Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button, and we'll notify you when the next story comes out.